The wind howled across the deck of the Sea Serpent, the most feared ship on the seven seas. The salty scent of the ocean mixed with gunpowder and rum as the crew celebrated their victory. Juliette Navarro leaned against the mast, watching her men tie up the survivors from the rival ship. They had captured Captain Alexander Hawthorne, the infamous sea wolf who had never been defeated in battle.
Until now.
Alexander knelt before her, his wrists bound behind his back, his shirt torn open, revealing a muscled chest covered in battle scars. But what infuriated Juliette the most was his gaze, not a hint of fear, only defiance. "So, you finally caught your prey, Captain Navarro?" His voice was deep, rough, and full of provocation. She smirked, letting her gaze linger on his body. "The real question is, what should I do with you?" She should kill him. He was an enemy, a threat, but deep down, desire burned hotter than vengeance. That night, Juliette entered the captain's quarters, where Alexander was imprisoned. The candlelight flickered, casting golden shadows on the walls, and the scent of salt and leather clung to the air. He sat, his arms bound by chains against the wall, but his expression was still that of a man who thought he had control. "Come to torture me, Captain?" He arched an eyebrow. "If I wanted torture, I would have started already." She approached slowly, her fingers grazing the edge of her corset, adjusting it deliberately, watching his gaze darken with hunger. "You hate me, don't you?" he murmured. "With every fiber of my being. Then why can't you stop looking at me?" She leaned in, her lips just a breath away from his, feeling the heat of his heavy breath. "Because hate and desire walk the same path, Captain." He pulled at the chains, testing them. "If you untie me, I'll show you just how true that is." Her pulse raced. She knew playing with fire meant getting burned, but at that moment, she craved the flames. She drew a dagger and trailed the cold blade down his chest, moving slowly, feeling the muscles tense beneath her touch. Alexander smirked, fearless. "If you want to cut me, go ahead. But I think you have something else in mind." Juliette pressed the blade a little harder, feeling her heartbeat quicken. Why did he do this to her? Alexander leaned forward as much as the chains allowed, his face inches from hers. "Set my hands free, and I promise I'll take you right here, in this cabin." She should have laughed. She should have thrown him overboard. Instead, her fingers slid to the knots holding his hands. And the moment the chains fell, Alexander pulled her into his arms. The kiss was raw,
Wild.
a war of teeth and tongues, neither willing to surrender. That night, there was no captain and prisoner, only a man and a woman consumed by desire. But by morning, they were still enemies, and one of them would have to betray the other.